Hi everyone. I'm using some new software to record the screen on my computer today, and hopefully this will help you with the work that we're doing. What you'll see is that I've got the page from page 13 from your PDF open on my screen, and I'm going to work through this with you in probably 2 videos. I won't admit to the fact that I've actually already recorded this first video but didn't have the microphone functioning, so you'll think that what I'm saying is all fresh, and in fact it's not. I've rehearsed it unintentionally. But here we go. What I want to do today is really work through the nature of essays in literature. I'm not really going to talk about essays. I'm going to talk about them, as the heading suggests, as discussions, because I want you to move away from the idea of what you knew to be an essay in English. Literature essays don't have the same structure. They don't have the same requirement. An English essay is a very precise sort of formula that you need to follow. And really good students end up moving away from those formulas, but they still have the same sort of ebb and flow. Literature essays have quite a different discussion. I think in class the other day I said that if you think about an English essay as saying, this is what I think and this is why I think it, a literature essay is more, I liked these moments, they had impact, and they led me to this place. So we don't start out with a firm answer, if you like. What we start out with is an acknowledgement that there are moments in the text that are impactful, and we explore those moments to reach an interpretation. Now, that's what the essay should read like. It's not true to say that when we start our essay, we don't have an idea of the answer that we're going to give, but what we don't necessarily want to do is flag that at the very beginning. We want the examiner or your teacher, me, to read the paper, read the discussion as an exploration of the text that ends up in a conclusion, in an interpretation. Think about it this way. The examiner or I want to see your developing understanding of the text. We want to see you putting the pieces together. If you think about this like maths, we're more concerned with the working than we are with the correct answer at the end. So what I've done is I've written an essay on a non-literary text, the second original Star Wars film, The Empire Strikes Back, and it doesn't matter if you haven't seen it. We're really just looking at the parts of the sentences, the parts of the paragraphs, but you should watch Empire Strikes Back. It's a good film. But I wanted to do it on a non-literary text to make a point. I wanted to make the point that any text that lasts ends up having literary meaning. So Shakespeare, for instance, when he wrote The Tempest, didn't intend for it to be studied 400 years later in high schools. He wrote it as a piece of entertainment. The writers of Empire Strikes Back didn't expect us to be writing an essay and talking about it today. They wrote it as a piece of entertainment. But if it communicates something of value about society, the human condition, or philosophical thought, then it's going to last and it's going to continue to be discussed. So the critic, J.B. Burroughs, actually is a literary critic, and he has said of Empire Strikes Back that a protagonist who perfectly demonstrates the power of change of the universe comes from within is the protagonist of The Empire Strikes Back. So Luke Skywalker, he has a quality to him that captures an idea that resonates with all of us, that if you want to change the world, you've got to look inside yourself for some intrinsic ability. And he says, a better knowledge and trust in oneself is what gives one power. So people have walked away from Star Wars, from The Empire Strikes Back, with a big concept, with a big idea. I say there that this is a fairly psychoanalytic reading. And what I mean by that is Luke represents an experience that many of us might feel, that we want to change things and we're not sure how to change things. And in a sense, watching Luke process the things that he needs to process is teaching us what we need to do. It's tapping into an unconscious desire to better understand ourselves so that we can participate in the world. So it's a slight psychoanalytic reading of the text. It's coming from that attaching the unconscious desire to better know oneself so that we can better participate in the world to a character in the text. So it's a psychoanalytic take. What we're going to do is we're going to read through some of the essay, and I'm going to talk about it, which is why I've had to record this video rather than just letting you do it on your own. And I'm going to show you how these paragraphs don't follow a formula as such, but they do have certain qualities, how they're different from an English essay, and I'm going to ask you to highlight and annotate the document. So at this point, 5 or 6 minutes in, what you might like to do is pause it and get some stuff together. Before you do that, here's what you need. You're going to need 4 different colors of highlighter. I'm going to be using green, yellow, blue, and purple, but you can have any 4 colors and obviously have a key at the top of the page of your own. You can use, like I'm using, you could use Word and do it in Word, or you can print out the pages as hard copy, or you can do it in an app like Notability or something like that, an annotation app on your iPad. Obviously, if you're doing that, you're going to need to have this video playing on a different device to your iPad. So pause and get your self set up to do some annotation. This is part of your journal, handing in this annotation, whether it's me seeing it on the screen or me seeing it on some paper. Get your pens, get some highlighters, and come back ready to start. Okay, I'm just going to increase the size of this slightly so that you can see just a paragraph at a time. So The Empire Strikes Back is the second of the original Star Wars films. Basically, the storyline is Luke Skywalker, who's pictured there hanging upside down, has decided to try and take on the role of this sort of knight. It's essentially a knight and castle sort of traditional medieval England story set in space, if you not familiar with Star Wars. He's taken on the role of a knight who sort of has a mystical energy connected to a thing called the Force, which allows him to control things with his mind. It allows him to wield a lightsaber, which is a laser sword, and do these feats of great sort of mental concentration that others can't do. And he is, in essence, the last of his kind that can do this. He's fighting against the Empire, an oppressive sort of military regime that's headed by an emperor who's at this stage yet unseen, and the emperor's main knight on the dark side, Darth Vader. And so this is the second of the films. It starts set on an ice world called Hoth, and it starts with an exploration of Luke Skywalker going off and trying to sort of find his way in the world. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read through the paragraphs, and I'm going to talk about what parts of each sentence are doing. Some sentences do a lot, and some sentences are there just to stitch things together. But one thing you'll immediately recognize is that there's no introduction. There's no introduction in a literature essay or a literature discussion, because what an introduction does, it says, this is what I think, and this is what my essay is going to do. As I said before, a literature essay is not meant to do that. It's meant to discuss moments, it's meant to discuss evidence, it's meant to discuss things of impact and import in the text, and then arrive at a conclusion or an interpretation because of those discussions. So if we were to start with an introduction, what we would be doing is saying, I've already decided, now I'm going to show you my working. And in fact, what we want to see is you working to arrive at that answer. So no introduction. You might have the answer in your head, and I clearly do in this instance, but you're not flagging that to the person reading the essay to begin with. So obviously I'm holding in my head that perspective from before that, the main character, the protagonist here, Luke Skywalker, is drawing on better understanding himself and drawing on some strength within in order to become a person that changes the world, changes the universe. So as I said, you're going to need 4 colors of highlighter. You're going to need a green highlighter, and I'm going to use that to show you where I'm making interpretations. I'm going to use a yellow highlighter, and that's going to show me where my examples or evidence or specific textual references are. I'm going to use a blue highlighter to show where I'm discussing the effects of that evidence, which is probably the most important and sometimes the most challenging part of literature. This is the deconstruction. Okay, the blue highlighter will be deconstruction. And then I'm going to use a purple highlighter really infrequently to show where I'm tying these discussions together into big ideas, or I guess wrapping up the discussion of that material and showing that it's led to some big understanding or big idea. You'll also need a pencil or a pen to annotate in the margin.